Clerk Segrist, could you please call the roll?
All right. Trustee Anthony.
Present.
Trustee Foster.
Good evening.
Trustee Graham-Hudek. Let the record reflect that Clerk Segrist is in attendance. Treasurer Slavens.
Good evening.
Trustee Snyderman.
Hello, everyone.
And Supervisor Williams.
Hello, good evening. We have a call for a motion to adopt the agenda with some modifications.
All right. Mr. Supervisor, I move to amend the agenda by removing item C5, consider second reading of amendment to Canton Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Article 3, entitled Massage, Sections 18-82 through 18-107 from the consent calendar, placing it on the general calendar as item G11. Additionally, I move items G9, approval of establishment of Canton Township Roads Advisory Task Force, and item G10, reconsider approval of a letter of intent from Wayne County for the paving and drainage improvements on Ridge Road from Hanford Road to Warren Road on the general calendar to the beginning and renumbering them as items G1A and G1B respectively.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes of the July 11th, 2017 board meeting.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt or approve the minutes from the July 11th, 2017 meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now it's time on the agenda for any non-agenda item citizens' comments. So if you're in the audience tonight to discuss something that's on the agenda, we ask that you hold back until that agenda item comes up for discussion. With that being said, is there any non-agenda? Yes, please, and then Dr. Colmenar second. So ma'am, if you please, approach the podium, and if you would tell us your name, address, and then we'd ask that you, all speakers tonight, limit to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Robin Lamb, and my address is 47214 Ford Road, and I am here representing a group of houses and a business along Ford Road at Beck, and we have a serious Fellows Creek erosion issue. And I'm bringing this back to the board because a lot of you are new this year. I've been dealing with it for 30 years, but the last 2 years, we've had significant erosion and our houses are in jeopardy. And what I have done, the Fellows Creek is the responsibility of Wayne County. They generally have $5,000 per year per mile of creek to put into fixing it. They waited so long and did nothing for the past 60 years that now the fix, the last I heard, was about $100,000. We have filled out a petition, the first time since 1946, to have the creek improved instead of just fixed. And I have a copy of that petition here, and I've given one to Michael. And we are asking Canton Township for your help, your financial help with Wayne County. Apparently you have the ability to release them from that $5,000 minimum per mile per year and help us come up with the funds to save our homes. And I represent an 87-year-old neighbor and her granddaughter, Jeannie Barassi, who's set to inherit that property, which will pretty much be worthless if the house falls in. My own home, which was built in 1940, which is a family property. The sound studio, apparently, I just found out, is starting to worry about erosion issues. They've gone so far as to buy FEMA insurance, something that the rest of us can't afford to do. So I just wanted to get it back before the board, say welcome to all the new people, and start a discussion.
Very much for your comments.
And is it possible to just show you real quick a section of the creek that I'm talking about so you have an idea?
Photograph? Or,
Yes.
okay. Is it something you could send us a copy of?
Yes, I can.
That'd probably be more efficient. That way we get it out to everybody.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Dr. Colmenars, you'd like to speak?
My name is Dr. Colmenars. I live at 41900 South Drive. I've been here before several times on the same matter, which is the noise that seems to be coming from the township dump at the corner of the south, actually it's the southeast corner of Michigan Avenue and Lily Road. I had a letter from the supervisor in March after I'd been here a couple of times, and that letter said in part they would continue to try to pin down the problem of the noise that's being created. The noise seems to be coming and is coming from the dump. The problem arises from the burning of the gas, apparently, and they're dissipating the heat by exhaust fans, and I believe those exhaust fans are creating all the noise. The township's stance on it is that they measure the noise level at the dump and at the boundary line of my property. My property is less than a quarter of a mile from the dump. That philosophy of measuring the noise level at the boundary of my property doesn't conform with the ordinance. The ordinance reads, actually it's Ordinance Article 7.00, subsection 7.02A, specifies noise measurements are to be conducted under the noise ordinance. Both the police department and the ordinance department claim that they have to measure not only at the dump for the noise level, but at my property. However, this ordinance 7.02A specifically specifies as measured at the boundary line of the lot in which the operation or activity is located, which means it's located at the dump, not at my property line. I've tried to explain to the ordinance department and the police department that they should not be taking the noise level at my property line, but at the dump property line. This has been going on since last September, and before that. However, it took me several months to pin it down to where it was coming from. I've lived there for 60 years, and I know the area well. I hunted the area in my younger days. And the last communication I had from Canton Township was they would look into the matter. Well, I think the matter stands in the ordinance that they have to be taking the measurement at the dump and not at my property line. And I had my attorney look it over and see if I was not correct in reading the ordinance. And he agreed with me that it should be read at the property line, not at the property line, but at the dump line. I'd like to resolve this matter. This thing goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Today, at 2:50 PM, it was booming, and it continued until 5:26. It wakes me up at night and keeps me up at night. I'd like to resolve this matter.
Thank you very much, Dr. Colmenars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment not related to an agenda item this evening? Not related to any agenda items this evening? Please, Ms. Choi. Mrs. Choi.
Good evening. My name is Kim Choi. I live at 50039 Pelham Court, Canton, 48187. Since I'm here and I have the opportunity to ask or make a statement, I wanted to see if I could get some help from the township with my plan to gather the old recycling bins, like a more formal plan. I've been wandering around, picking them up from all the different neighborhoods, etc. But the problem I have is storage at my house, my husband will verify, and then also having a place where people can drop them off that's more centralized or whatever. So I was hoping that maybe the township could send out a note to people to say, please don't destroy them. If they're in good condition, drop them off here, perhaps, or the library or something. So I'd like to just put that on the record, please.
Good, thank you very much for your comments. Is there any additional public comment? Additional public comment not related to any agenda items this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on now to payment of the bills. Treasurer Slavens, we're going to pay the
Yes.
bills this month.
Yes, I make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
Those in favor of paying the bills this morning, or this month, state aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Now we'll move on to the consent calendar as amended.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the consent calendar as amended.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Very good. Now we're going to move on to the amended general calendar. First up this evening is item G1A, which was the former G9, correct? Thank you. Let's see, get the paperwork straight. Do I have that right? Okay. Approval of establishment of Canton Township's Roads Advisory Task Force.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to authorize the establishment of an ad hoc Canton Township Roads Advisory Task Force to consist of community leaders recommended by yourself, the supervisor, and approved by the task force chair, Jim Castiva, and Township Board Representative, Trustee Summer Foster.
Support. In summary, Township Board has communicated and expressed interest in pursuing a feasibility of local roads initiative to address the discrepancies in community expectation from service levels delivered. In order to do so, the Township Board has requested a committee be created to determine the extent of infrastructure gap, identify alternative methods of funding, and include detailed roads assessment or long-range plan in a final recommendation. The task force is to be chaired by resident Jim Castiva and will consist of members representing community groups, homeowners associations, with the board liaison, Trustee Foster, and staff liaison from Municipal Services Division, which will be our engineer, Bill Surchek. And we've also decided that Wendy and Josh will serve as finance and public safety subject matter experts to offer their expertise to respond to any inquiries the task force may have. Is there any additional board comment or discussion or questions?
Yeah.
I'm glad we're moving forward with this. I think it's a great idea. I know Wayne County has PACER studies, which will help us out a lot and with no cost. So I am looking forward to this. Thank you.
Summer?
Just for me, I want to say I'm really happy that we're forming this task force. I think it's important to have everyone at the table to come up with a solution for our roads, and everybody knows that, you know, there's infrastructure gaps across the township, and I think this will be a step forward into addressing those gaps.
Steve?
I agree that this is a great step forward for us. It's an important step for us in terms of fixing all the issues that we have in terms of roads in our community. And I wasn't sure if anybody was going to address this, but just because it was brought up last meeting, this is not something that's costing us $1 million.
No, it will
And
not.
we're not approving $1 million for some type of PASER study. That's not something that I've heard anyone on our board ever ask for. So I just wanted to make sure that the community was clear about that.
Good point of clarification. Any other comments? John? Michael?
Great idea.
Yeah, I'm excited to get this work done. I think we've got Commissioner Barone here in the audience. I know he's expressed his interest in serving on the committee as well. I think that's huge, especially since a significant number, I believe over 80% of our roads are actually county roads. I understand there is some movement from other townships and other commissioners who represent other townships that might be interested in getting a countywide road initiative going. So perhaps there's a resolution we can put together in support of that. I look forward to this committee, if it passes, obviously, doing a joint session with us at the end of August where we collect the work that's been done by MDOT to analyze their roads, the Michigan Department of Transportation, to collect the 2-year studies that the county does on their neighborhood roads, and to compile that information, fill in the gaps, take a look at where we're at and where we want to be, give us some solutions, because, yeah, I mean, it's clear by this room here that people are not content with the services they are getting when it comes to roads. So I'm excited.
Good. Seeing no other comments or questions, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on now to item G1B, which is reconsider approval of letter of intent from Wayne County for the paving and drainage of improvements on Ridge Road from Hanford Road to Warren Road. And with that, in terms of process, we had a pretty lengthy meeting a couple of weeks back, and I believe there's quite a few people here interested in speaking on this topic tonight. So what I'd like to do is, after the motion is read by Clerk Segrist and seconded, I am then going to call for public comment. And then I want to work in a very fashionable, organized manner from perhaps the back row towards the front, and then just kind of go in order as the group goes up, form a line so we can move quickly to it. I'm going to ask everybody to reserve their comments to 3 minutes, number one. Number two is please don't repeat what's already been said. And if you've heard somebody else say what you're very passionate want to say, then please let them represent both of you so we can move quickly through it. And then if you have something new to offer, please, we want to hear it. So that being said, we'll start in the back and
We need a motion first?
we'll need the motion.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Motion first.
All right, and there are going to, with this agenda item, I'm going to have 2 motions, right? So the first will be the motion to reconsider. The second would be the motion on the actual letter of intent. So, Mr. Supervisor, I move to reconsider the vote on the approval of a letter of intent from Wayne County for the paving and drainage improvements on Ridge Road from Hanford Road to Warren Road. I voted against the motion in accordance with the prevailing side.
Second.
Good. Now what I'd like to do is call for public comment, and again,
May I ask that we have the directors maybe just talk about the item before public comment? Because I know there's an additional attachment from finance.
we really didn't practice this, but I think we can. Yeah, because one of the concerns and why this is being brought back to the surface is there were concerns about the capacity and ability to pay. And if we were to bond, and how would that work, and can we afford to do it, yes or no? So with that being said, why don't we go Wendy and then Josh from a public safety perspective, your view on this project, and then Tim.
So the question was posed as to how we could possibly finance this if we were going to do that. We have a number of options. We do have some fund balance available and funds that have already been kind of earmarked for other projects besides this, but if it's the board's priority to change the purpose of that fund balance, we could do that. We are under our debt capacity, so we could bond for it. That would equate over a 10-year period, you know, depending on where interest rates fall, somewhere between $120,000 to probably $160,000 a year out of general fund dollars. We happen to have a debt issuance that was rolling off the books. Our last payment for that was in 2018. So about the timing, probably the earliest timing that we would pay back any bonds would overlap maybe 1 year. And that was about $165,000 a year as well. So you could almost have a seamless transition there if you weren't going to, you know, address other capital issues at the township. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared, so I'm trying to think off the cuff if there was
I think
anything else.
you've covered the highlights.
I think that was basically it, was that we have a little bit of fund balance in other areas if the board wants to move that direction, or we have bonding capacity, and in the future, we have debt issuances that are expiring that we could use current property tax dollars to pay that off in the future. If there's any specific questions, I'm sure it would jog my memory, but.
Yeah, specific questions for Wendy, yes, please.
Director Wendy, you said that there were other projects earmarked. Do you know what those are, or you're just saying in general?
We have the CIP plan underway right now. We've got a company addressing all of the other needs of the township. So we don't even know well, I shouldn't say we don't know. We have a good idea of what we have out there. We've got a lot of unaddressed capital items, parking lots, deferred capital that we've pushed off for a number of years. So it's not earmarked for anything specific at this point in time, but kind of as waiting as a result to see where the study ends up and determine how we're going to utilize that money. So it was earmarked for capital, but for capital that we have deferred.
Those projects could be pushed off then, would be pushed
Potentially.
off.
Potentially.
I guess maybe I might remind you of one other option that we might have that you provided to me.
The question was asked about how much tax mills would it take to fund such a thing. Every one mill brings in about $3.7 million, give or take a little bit. So it would take about half a mil to get the entire, you know, if the entire project
If you did
would
it in
cost-
1 year.
Right, $2 million would be about half a mil.
Thank you, Wendy. Any other questions for? Yeah, go
Quick
ahead,
statement,
Diane.
so it sounds like we have three options if we were to go forward with this. One would be delaying some, you know, projects we need done, parking lots, structural repairs. Another's a bond, and then that would, we would have to take $160,000 per year from our general fund to pay for that.
Correct?
Or then the last one would be the millage. So it looks like there's three options, but
Correct.
dollars would come from.
Correct. And when we go down to actually doing a project and deciding if we were going to move forward with it, we would address all of those options at that point in time.
Josh, brief summary from a public safety perspective.
In terms of specific comments, I don't have much. Director Foss and I have initiated at least the initial process and some of the concerns that were raised at the last board meeting in regards to speed and the stop sign. You know, we're waiting on some information back from the county on that, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions that the board or the residents may have related to either traffic or public safety impact.
Questions? Yes, Summer?
If the road was paved, what could the speed limit be reduced to?
So the way that the legislation that Director Foss and I are looking at only applies to roads that are unpaved, gravel roadways. If the road is paved, that would then be the responsibility of the county and the state police to determine the speed limit. We would be able to petition the county and the state police and put our recommendation forward, but ultimately that would be a decision of the county and the state police.
Current speed limit on Ridge Road today is
55.
5 miles per hour. Thank you very much. Tim?
Yeah, I guess just the last comment was at the meeting 2 weeks ago, there was some discussion, and just off the cuff, I threw out a number of 600,000 for the additional cost to complete Phase 3, which would be the 900 feet that potentially could remain unpaved. We went back and double-checked those figures. The actual figure is 583,000 and change, so that number's pretty close. We'd probably hedge our bets a bit and just say that if there's interest in pursuing that in the future, 600,000 is probably a good number.
Then I'm sorry, Diane, go ahead. Yeah.
And just, I know someone had talked about a possible stop sign being put in there, so, and I don't know if you had to work with the state police or Wayne County, and are you pursuing that as well?
We're pursuing it. We're in conversation with the county. Ultimately, the stop sign comes down to a county decision. There's specific requirements set forth in the motor vehicle code that allow for a stop sign to be placed. Whether or not the intersection of Ridge and Hanford meet those requirements will ultimately be up to the county to make a decision.
I'm sorry, Emery, go
Sorry,
ahead.
that's one more
Yeah.
question. So, Director Josh, so for the 18 unpaved roads in Canton, is that the issue? Do we have the same speed limit issues on those? I know there's a lot of unpaved residential roads off of Sheldon Road, just south of Ford.
So I wouldn't say it's the same issue. We have, in terms of 55-mile-an-hour sections of the township, we have concerns over paved roads within the community that are rated at 55 miles an hour. If we look back a few weeks ago, there was some concern by residents over Lots Road, which was previously gravel between Ford Road and Cherry Hill. That was recently paved. That's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. It's an unmarked, so it's considered 55 miles per hour. So it varies throughout the township, whether they're not just unpaved roads, but also paved roads as well. That raises a concern for us as far as a public safety standpoint. We believe if we can reduce some of those speed limits, we reduce the potential for accidents and the potential for danger for our residents that live or have to live along those roads or those section of roads.
Seeing no other board comment or questions at this time of staff, I'd like to go to public comment, and first in line in the back row, I think may want to speak is County Commissioner Joe Barone. And Joe, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to step in as you are representing Wayne County this evening. Unlike everybody else in the room, everybody else in the room gets one opportunity to speak tonight. Joe can come and go as he sees fit to help us get through the conversation appropriately. So,
I appreciate that, Mr. Supervisor, and this has been a project we've been dealing with for quite some time. So when I took office in 2015, this was one of the primary. This was maybe the main thing that we were talking about is paving Ridge Road. So we've been dealing with this at least, and I know it's been extended to Supervisor LaJoy. We've been dealing with this for quite a while. And the key is last conversation, I think Supervisor Williams and I were sitting in on a meeting with the county executive, and they said the last time they've paved a road, meaning county contributed funds, in the county, was they look back and they go, well, we can't remember. We just don't do it. We don't contribute funds. So this is something that we've been working on for a long time. But I think what I can really contribute to this in the discussion, and I commend the board for actually taking a second look at this. It's important to everybody, I believe, in Canton Township. But to actually, look at it again, it shows the integrity that you really want to do something good for the residents here. So I appreciate that. This sum of money that the county has, that they're contributing to this, I think there's a misconception that this will somehow go back to into another project, into our neighborhood. You look at our roads, our neighborhood roads, we all know that they're in shambles. It's just, it's a matter of we have limited funds all the way around. It's not just a county problem. It's not just a Canton Township problem. This is if you follow the money, it flows through the gas tax. And another misconception is your property taxes actually contribute to your roads, and they don't. This is at the pump and your registration fees. So it is a huge problem. What exemplifies us in Canton Township is we have so many, one, we're large, second largest, I believe, second largest township in the state. So we have so many neighborhood roads that are in disrepair. There's a huge need, and we're going to try to push this. We're going to try to reinstitute our township road initiative, and I commend the board again for actually putting together this task force, because I think this is something we can do some good things. So, but this pot of money is not coming back to Canton Township. If we say, Wayne County, take your money and put it elsewhere, it is going elsewhere. And that elsewhere is probably going to be either the city of Detroit, another township, Grosse Ile, Brownstown. It's going elsewhere. So if you look back at our, I believe it was the State of the Community address, and I think many of you were there, County Executive Warren Evans was there, and he was expressing to us, I think I have some good news for you. And the good news, and he couldn't announce it because we were in negotiations, at least to get it in front of this body at that time. The good news was we're agreeing to throw some money at Ridge Road because we recognize there's a problem. And so that is the letter followed. The letter came and spoke to the board and said, we are coming forward. We are going to contribute some money, and I think you guys are going to be pleased. And from the long-term perspective, for Canton Township's perspective, I don't want to take that letter and throw it in the trash, because there are future projects, there are future dollars that come down from the county, and I think they're going to benefit us all. So again, I thank you guys for actually taking this back up and taking a second look. So if anybody has any questions, too.
Anybody have any questions, Commissioner Brown? Any questions? Okay, seeing none. All right, again, we're going to start from the back row. Mr. Green, and just work across the row. Would you like to speak this evening, sir? No? Okay. Darrell is taking notes from the Observer. Ma'am, would you like to speak this evening? Okay. If you could, please state your name, address, and then we're trying to limit to 3 minutes.
My name is Bonnie Bedola, and my address is 6775 Portsman Court, Canton. And I'm actually in the process of moving this week. My former address is on Trent Drive over off of Lilly. And so I've been in the position of traveling Ridge Road a lot as I drive back and forth carrying my household belongings. And there's a lot of traffic on Ridge Road. And because of and it is graded periodically, but in between gradings, some deep pits develop in the road. And because of that, sometimes cars are driving down the middle of the road, or, and so then you've got cars coming from opposite directions. If it were a seldom used dirt road that was lightly traveled, that wouldn't be a problem, but it's heavily traveled. They mentioned Lots Road being recently paved. And because I have recently lived on that side of town, I also saw traffic on that road, and it was a lot lighter than the traffic I see on Ridge Road. So I see this as a safety issue just because of the sheer volume of traffic on the road, and also because there are a lot of students who use Ridge Road to get to the park and to get around some of the traffic on Beck. And because they're putting in some new subdivisions further south on Ridge and off of Denton, there's going to be more of that student traffic. So especially with an inexperienced driver, I can see, some of the heavy volume of traffic and traffic avoiding those pits in the road being a real safety issue, particularly for the younger drivers. So just the sheer volume of the traffic on Ridge Road is in excess of what is typically on a dirt road.
Thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Waldecker, would you like to speak this evening? Yeah, I can address that. Is the,
And just, if I may, because this is recorded and put on TV, any comments from the audience will not be picked up. So for those who are going to be watching this probably tomorrow, they will not have heard that question. That question, just for the record and for everybody who's not in this room, is there is a 25-mile posting, but the comment was made earlier that the speed was faster. So that is what is going to be answered. And it says loose gravel road. And in the future, just come up to the podium. I would appreciate it.
thank you. Yeah, the punchline there is Wayne County kind of negotiated or agreed to, I don't know, through public safety or through municipal services, but they put up a sign that says 25 loose gravel it's a yellow sign. It's suggested. Our public safety department cannot enforce that sign. That's a fact, sir. It's a suggested speed limit. It's not your standard speed limit, and that's why. Yeah, it's unposted. It's 55 miles an hour officially in the state.
My name is Richard Waldecker. I live at 7056 Clampton Court near Sheldon and Warren Road. As I stated earlier, I do the Underwire Farm ITC property beside the Red Barn, which I'm the guy that started the project to save, by the way. And I travel Ridge Road frequently on my way over there, and I read 25-mile-an-hour posted speed limit, loose gravel road. That is posted as such. I just want that on the record. That's why I was surprised to hear 55. And I've got a heavy-duty truck, and I couldn't drive it at 55, so I don't know how anybody else could. That's all. It's just get that on the record.
Thank you, Richard. Sir, would you like to speak this evening? Okay, second from the back row, working left, my left to right. Sir, would you like to speak? No? Would you speak? No. Would you like to speak? Okay, third row. Sir, would you like to speak, please?
Good evening. My name is George Kruchak. I live at 6618 Carlton Road. I'm here representing the Sunflower Road Committee, and also I'm a Sunflower Board member. 2 weeks ago I was here, happily heard you indicate, other than Mr. Anthony, that you needed further consideration of this proposal. I left here saying, bravo, that's great. Then today you approved the task force, which is also wonderful. Why wouldn't you let this task force determine which way to go? There's so many issues, as we all know. Sunflower has many, but other places of Canton have a lot of issues. And you're going to have this task force. Why wouldn't you let it try to determine whether Ridge Road is the #1 priority in Canton? I don't believe it is. Our road committee doesn't believe it is. I took an informal poll, electronic poll, of our residents in Sunflower before coming here today. Many, many residents indicate it isn't. So why don't you let the task force do this? Also, I did a very uneducated count of the number of homes in the 2 subdivisions off of Ridge Road. If my count is somewhat accurate, it's about 175 homes. We have 175 homes on one road, Bartlett Road in Sunflower. So if you're looking for bang for the buck, I don't believe this is the bang for the buck. Last comment is, if this is truly, and I don't believe it is, but if it is truly a safety issue, then the county and you guys need to do all of it, not a small portion of it. It don't fly. The people can see right through this. If it is a safety issue, you want to change the speed limit, you want to add stop signs, do all of it. Don't ask Canton residents to pay $1.5 million for a partial redo of Ridge Road that does not solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now moving up, sir? 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 Ma'am, would you like to speak? Okay, very good. You would like to, please? Oh, so you covered 40. Okay, very good. All right. Hi, Madam President, how are you doing? Would you like to speak? Wonderful. Welcome. Yeah, this Mrs. Kate Bortninsky is the president of our local school board. So thank you for attending our meeting this evening. Ma'am, would you like to speak this? No, sir? No? Please, would you like to? Yep.
Hello, everyone. My name's Gary Agdorny. I live at 6200 Ridge Road. I'm in Phase 3. It doesn't bother me as much as it does some. When I moved here, it was dirt. I knew it was dirt. I don't like the dust. But I really think the primary control of all this is you guys got to do something about all the heavy trucks that come down that road. I know that was discussed last time. But yesterday, between 4 and 5 o'clock, I counted 8 trucks come down through there. And they're all from the same company. You know who it is. And it's Colson and Son? Is that right? And DiMarino. But they're the same company. They just got 2 trucks with different names on it that come out of the same yard. Now, it would be okay in my mind if they were doing something in the subdivisions, building the homes, helping to develop our community. But they're using that road strictly as an access to get to the dump at 5 Mile and Napier, because I followed them. That just isn't right. You've got Beck Road that is paved. You can run that to 5 Mile and take it. But when you use our road, it was just graded here last week, and it's already getting tore up. It's because of the trucks. I don't know how you're going to get the money to pave it. I hope someday you can pave it all. I probably won't be here. Yeah. I think that's way off in the future, but I've been here since '62. And these people are right. The traffic that comes on that road is 200% greater than it was 10 years ago. It's terrible. And the portion that you are thinking about paving is wonderful for the people's backyards that back up to that. And that's great. I'm not trying to deprive them of that. But none of those homes except one has a driveway that comes out onto Ridge Road. Everybody between Hanford and Ford Road has to come out and enter onto Ridge Road to leave. Try that sometime with all the trucks and the dust. It's not safe and it's not easy. My concern is when you pave it, you may never be able to get out on the road. I've seen what the poor people on Beck Road have to do, but I'm not trying to stop you from doing that. I'm just trying to ask you to really take a good conscious look at what you're doing with $1.5 million of our money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sir, okay, yeah, we're kind of going back a row, but that's okay, please. Yep.
Hey, again, my name is Kun Wang from 7011 Sylvania Lane. This is from Westchester Subdivision. So first of all, I'd like to, I think, the data matters. So the gentleman just mentioned that the 2 subdivisions over there are around 175 homes. That is not true, okay? I would say, for our subdivision, it's about 130 homes, and the other subdivision is about 180, so it's over 300 homes, so that makes a difference. Not only that, we're talking about just the traffic, the residents along that area who uses the road. We're talking about all the traffic from all the construction site around us, all the 40-wheel trucks. Sometimes they carry large woods, sometimes the large trucks also carry some tractors using that road, and they just, run through that road very fast. I cannot, I don't think anybody can argue. If you actually see that, I don't think anybody can argue that's not a safety issue. It's definitely a safety issue for everyone. So as you guys all know, the church, the two churches that are going to be built, one on the back, the other on the ridge, the Sing Home Phase 3, the park, the two large subdivisions from Pruitt as well as Toll Brothers. They all use this road as their through traffic, south, west to east, east to west. They all use this as somehow, all of a sudden they use this as a through traffic. I don't understand why, The second thing, I think it's also important, it's very important to pave the road right now because, if we don't do anything, okay, we cannot resolve any problem. I mean, residents around here still suffer a lot of safety and dust health issues. But as long as the road is paved, I mean, at least we can significantly reduce our problem. I'm not saying we can address all these problems all at once. I don't think any township has the capacity to address all these issues altogether, okay? That's simply not possible. Capacity-wise, nobody can do that. However, if we focus on one issue, the most critical issue right now, get that resolved, we will be glad to work with the township, work with the county to progressively address all the remaining things, right? So let's take one step at a time and get all those issues eventually addressed. I think, everybody will be happy at that time. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Coming back, sir, would you like to speak, please?
David Branshaw, 6350 North Ridge. I'm on Phase 3. $600,000 to do Phase 3. That's where most driveways reach Ridge Road. I agree with my neighbor. It was unpaved when we moved in, but we have 100-fold traffic in the last 20 years. The road does not get maintained like it used to 20 years ago. It's become a very big safety issue. If we don't have the money to do both phases, and Canton doesn't want to put as much money in, what's wrong with switching Phase 1 and 3? Do the bridge, do that section, maybe through Hanford, so you have improved intersection so that the state, county will allow you to put stop signs, maybe to control through traffic. That would slow down traffic. Then do what is now Phase 1 later. The money's there for doing Phase 3 first from the county. It's less than what the county is going to put in for what is now Phase 1. They could do Phase 3 all by themselves now. And then when Singh does the section from Ford Road to there, you've got continuous pavement from Ford Road through hopefully the intersection of Hanford, where you can put controlled signage to slow down traffic. I know it doesn't immediately help the people in the subdivisions with their dust. It helps with ours and helps with our safety issue because we're the ones with the driveways right on Ridge Road. That's an alternate method of getting some improvements to that road. And as far as a concern about the sidewalks that was brought up last week, we have a park that's right there on Ridge Road. If they have the map available, there's a house on the west side, just north of the creek. Canton Township Park surrounds that house. There's access to Ridge Road from there. You're going to be putting walkways in that park. Your walkways can have a pedestrian bridge go from the main park over to the access over to Ridge Road, up the west side of Ridge Road and connect to the sidewalks that are for the subdivision. So they need to put sidewalks across the creek, in my opinion, doesn't exist, because there's another way to do it. So that should reduce the cost of doing the construction of the culvert, to be prepared to do the phase that's the most expensive phase later, if you don't have the money to do all of it now. It's just an alternate.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. And I did see, you're taking notes there, Tim, thank you. Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak, please?
My name is Justine Maldonado. I live at 386 Dunhill Way over on Ridge Road, but over by the Cherry Hill Village. I do go down Ridge Road. I do have a problem now, as it is, with all the school traffic and everything, and I've heard nothing talking about the left turns onto the roads and everything. That will be a nightmare to have. I already can sit at school time, 4 to 5 lights to make a left turn on Ridge Road going south. So I haven't heard that addressed. I haven't heard, students are still driving a portion of dirt road to get the rest of the way to the park. We will never be able to continue as Beck Road continues on to, Beck Road can go all the way to Wixom. Ridge Road is going to end at Warren, and there's going to be a gap. Have studies been done to see if Warren or Hanford can handle the traffic? To go, if people are going down Warren and they want to avoid the dirt, and this is all about the dirt and being unsafe and the 55 on the dirt, have you done studies to see if Warren Road can handle the traffic of the people that are going down Ridge Road and up Warren? Can they handle that over by the schools and everything? Have studies been done for that? I haven't heard that spoken. Where's the money coming from the bridge? I've heard a little bit, but is it coming from our tax dollars? I don't think that that's a wise spending of our money to spend, to just do from Ford Road to Warren when it's not going to cut down Beck Road traffic, which I think, Mr. Anthony, you said last time, no, somebody said, who? You, I can't see your name.
Ma'am, please, only
Yes,
address the
so
chair,
I
please.
can't,
Yeah.
I can't understand why we would pave a road only up to a certain part that has, we have the natural beauty road, that is not going to be touched for a very long time. So that's my other concern. I was also under the understanding that the money from Wayne County, from the last meeting, could be used for bridges and other things. I don't know if I heard incorrectly, but that is what I heard. So,
Would you like to approach now, Joe? You might as well. Please, yeah. We want to keep the clerk happy. Please come to the podium.
The people at home.
People at home.
So I believe the question was whether the money could be used for bridges or other.
that's what my understanding from the last meeting was, that it could be used for other things.
It could be.
Okay.
But the real item there is could. And when we're telling the county executive that we don't want money in Canton Township from the county, my inclination is, and you can't quote me on this, and the county executive may have a different position, but my inclination is if Canton Township turns this down, it is going to one of the other 43 communities.
The thing is, we wouldn't be turning it down if we let them, and let me just finish, if we let you guys do your study And we said, listen, we want the money. Give us an X amount of time to do a study, decide where the money would best be suited, and then ask for, say, we use the money. That is my thing. Let's give it a little bit of time, a little bit of study. I will let you talk. I'm going to sit down. I've made my point.
I will sit down too, but I do appreciate the comment. The county works on budget time too, so this item was actually inserted in the budget last year. So it is a budgeted item. If we don't use this for Canton Township, they are going to reallocate it to another purpose.
And
So,
what is the time frame on that?
as far as when it's reallocated?
Yes.
I imagine it will, in fact, I mentioned this before, it may be, they're not going to tell the county commission that this dollar amount would, there could be an item that comes before the Committee on Public Services that says this dollar amount will be used for another purpose. They're not going to say, hey, this is Canton Township dollars. So you see what I'm saying? So in other words, we're not necessarily going to know that, I wouldn't necessarily know if it came before my committee that this was originally allocated for Canton Township. It's just going to say this was an item that was, we have a budget adjustment. I don't sit on the Committee of Ways and Means. So this could very easily sneak before, and go right under the radar. So, and there's no obligation for the county to say, yeah, that was originally allocated for Canton Township. We're going to use it for another purpose that the board wants. Now, I will do my best. I will do whatever I can to advocate that the money stays right here in Canton Township. But, again, there are no guarantees. My inclination is if we turn this money away from the county, then it's going to go to another community. So.
I'm addressing you specifically and only you, Commissioner Barone. I've attended meetings in the last week and a half, and I can tell you with a straight face that Nick's out of Northville Township already said, I want Canton's money. I got a problem over here. Heisey, I won't use the word I wanted to, but with his grin, said, I'm working on getting your money to my face. Okay, that's how this game is played, guys. Elhadius, before this, so, guys, there's 43 other communities, and they all got problems, they all got needs, and I'm looking at you, Joe, and nobody else having this conversation.
And absolutely, and thank you, Mr. Supervisor, because, with all the other local mayors and supervisors, we also have commissioners that are trying to get money for their district. So I can't speak for the county executive, different branch of government, but I can tell you my inclination is if we turn this away, it's going to go somewhere else. So.
And what is the timeline on when we have to tell them, yes, we're using it? Is it tomorrow? Is it a month? Is it when? Sorry, I don't know who to address.
And I can briefly, if it's okay, Mr. Supervisor or Mr.
We
Clerk?
really cannot get into question and answer. It's public comment, and please, you
Okay,
made
I
great
made my
comments.
comments.
And there's a lot there for us to think about. Thank you. Is there additional public comment? Sir, would you like to speak? Please.
Muhammad Ghazali, 7021 Sylvania Lane, again, resident of Westchester. Just wanted to thank you to taking this agenda item again. I'm hoping that you went back and looked at the data or the proposition and thought that maybe it's a good idea at least to revisit this, and thanking Mr. Barone to pursue this. Thing is that Kenton Township is already vested in this project. I'm sure we have paid for the engineering and the drainage assessment on there, and not privy to the details of that project. I would think that there is some window of time that the specs would change, or somehow maybe we won't be able to use that engineering for very long in the future. And now that we have commitment from the county, I would say that this is a good opportunity to utilize that fund. And as Commissioner Barone mentioned, that this is perhaps historic in a way that county is committing that much money for a local community, because he said that they couldn't remember when was the last time community allocated funds directly to the local community. So I would encourage the board to take this letter of intent and approve it. And as Mr. Anthony mentioned last time, if we don't do it now, then we don't know when it would happen again. And then, I mean, as they say, if wishes were horses, I guess we will all be riding it. But thing is that, I mean, we'll have to take what is available. It's not a perfect solution, but still, eventually we'll have to pave it. And the cost at that time, I mean, it won't be any cheaper. That's my guess. And as Commissioner Barone said, this is not coming from our property taxes. It's directly from the fuel or gas tax. So registration and fuel tax. So any concern that is going to raise directly our property taxes probably is not true. Again, I mean, property taxes or any taxes, excuse my less eloquence, but that's a ratchet that always goes forward. It's never going to come back or lower our taxes, even if we pass this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Please.
I'm Pinakin Patel. I live on 6957 Poppleton Road. So since 2012, we, the neighbor, work relentlessly with Phil LaJoy, Commissioner Price, Baroni, and Wayne County Executive, Christy Pagan, State Senator. Even we exchanged some email with the U.S. Senator and the Congressman. So a lot of effort went into this over the last 5 years. Between all the government officials, I have at least 300 emails exchanged. And I send you, each of you today, about 6 samples of that. So a lot of effort went into it. That's why we are getting this much attention. That's why we got the money. So I request you to use it. Otherwise, this thing will never get paved. And it's 5 years of relentless effort went into that. And I send you some sample email. So we went to Christy Pagan's meeting, Senator Pat Babcock, everybody was involved. A couple of years ago, there was a lot of email was exchanged back and forth. The second thing is putting the 25-mile speed limit white sign, enforceable speed limit. We work with Phil LaJoy and Wayne County, Commissioner Price, and they took that to the state level, and it was rejected. So we tried that real hard, and looks like we are trying that again, so I appreciate that, but I'm sure it will not happen because that's kind of went all the way to the state level. So thank you for taking this again.
Thank you. Would you like to speak? Please.
My name is Richard Choi. I live at 50039 Pelham Court. I come to you tonight with a thank you and 2 hopes. The thank you, again, as you've heard, for reconsidering this matter. It's very important to a lot of us, and I'm sure it was not a very easy thing to get arranged tonight. The 2 hopes. The first one is I hope that you listen to the residents that have the biggest stake in this matter, and those are the people that live along Ridge Road, and I think you've heard from many of them tonight. Ridge Road is the problem, and more importantly, Ridge Road is what's at issue tonight. And I think the great efforts that I just heard about creating the new Roads Commission, the Roads Task Force, will be able to address the other roads then. But tonight, the issue is Ridge Road, and that's what we should be dealing with. The second hope is that I hope that we seize this opportunity. I think it's clear that we need it, maybe not in the past, but now we do. You've heard about the increases in traffic there, and more importantly, in the future, we need it. We know as well from the future the future development of the churches that are going to be coming, it's going to be used even more, and I think that's going to increase the importance of having that section paved. It was interesting, it hasn't been brought up tonight, and we talked a lot about the hard work of the Township Commission in Wayne County. It's very important, but we haven't talked about the thing that that was most compelling to me about this, is that this project is being offered to the township at a 60% discount, right? Because, more or less, right? I mean, but the fact is, we know the cost, the total cost, and Wayne County is able to contribute roughly 60% of that cost, right? So, you know, it falls into that category of, let's really consider it. It feels like a no-brainer, right? So, and if I understand the proposal correctly. And in some, you know, I really feel that I've heard tonight that Wayne County has given us a gracious use it or lose it opportunity. So I really urge all of you to seize that opportunity and use the opportunity, the funds that we have available for this day. Thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes public comment. Now it would be time for board comments, questions. John, you want to lead us off?
Oh, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. Thanks to all of you showing up. You know, most of these board meetings are boring, quite frankly. But it's nice to see that democracy works, and it's nice to have all of you show up and the different views in that. We sit up here, all of us trying to do the best we can with the information we got, but to have citizens take your time out to come to talk, whatever the issue might be. It's Ridge Road tonight, it could be something. So I'd encourage you to come out more often. Maybe we can get some pizza or something, I don't know.
Not ice cream?
Phil LaJoy, the previous supervisor, and Pat Williams, the current supervisor, have worked very hard on this project for a number of years. Wayne County Executive Warren Evans, he showed up at the State of the Township meeting. Never happened before. Now, you can say politics, you can say whatever you want. He showed up. 2 weeks ago, Bernard Parker, who's the Deputy Executive Director of Wayne County for Warren Evans, he showed up. Of course, we have Joe Barone, our County Commissioner. He showed up. Somebody thinks it's important. Somebody thinks it's important to take their time out. All these gentlemen have other responsibilities, other jobs, but they think it's important. I think it's important. I want to thank Tim Fass, the Municipal Services Director, and his staff for what work they've done so far. Wendy Turnbull, our Finance Director, explaining how the money works. There's a couple of options we have. And the members of the Township Board, too. We don't just sit up here and just flip a coin. There's a lot of thought going into it, different perspectives to come into. So the board will come to a consensus one way or the other here. But the issue is that the last gentleman that spoke, I think, sort of put it in the capsule. There are a lot of issues, a lot of roads, a lot of problems, a lot of money back and forth. Ridge Road is the issue. It's the issue tonight. And the issue is $1.5 million from Wayne County, which has never happened before in Canton Township, that we will lose. It will go away, and it will never come back. Politics being what they are, do you think Warren Evans, all the political capital he's expended, all the time and effort in sending his chief deputy out here, that he's going to send another $1.5 million to Canton for whatever other project? Ain't going to happen. If I were him, I wouldn't do it either. He's got a lot of other things he could be doing with $1.5 million, and $1.5 million seems like a lot of money to me. But when you're talking about a Wayne County, 43-some communities and millions of dollars in the budget, ain't nothing. They can send that money down to Brownstown or Northville tomorrow and make everybody very happy up there. So it's important. Ridge Road is the issue, and I'm in favor of this motion.
We want to work left, right, right, left. Anne Marie?
Sure, thank you. I echo what John says in thanking everybody for them being here. I think Director Foss also had a bucket of chocolate, too, on the way out for everybody. We've been asked, I've heard a lot about $1.5 million from the county. We've been asked for a revote to spend $1.2 million, however, of taxpayer money, Canton taxpayer money, to partially pave a dirt road in Canton. Last year, the county joined in paving another dirt road, Lots Road, so this wouldn't be the first time they've done this, and it won't be the last. We live in Wayne County, so the county can't refuse funds to us. We pay taxes. Since this vote, since we've been asked to relook at this, and we haven't, number one, I like the task force, we really support that, and since this can't go to the task force because we're being asked to look at it tonight, I've done my own study. Just want to let you know. I've been an engineer for 27 years. I've done studies, prioritized engineering projects, including construction projects, which I worked earlier in my career. So I do have experience prioritizing projects like this. So I did my own. I just want to let you know what I found. But I just want to say projects and budgets should include evaluation of all of Canton Township, which this task force will do. There's a tool on SEMCOG. It's a SEMCOG Regional Traffic Counts database, and if anyone wants, I can sit down and show you how this tool works, and you can look at all the roads in Canton and look at the traffic that's been measured. The data from this tool, even if you increase it 10% since it was taken at the end of 2016, it will do proportionally across all the roads. Ridge Road between Ford and Joy Road has an average of 2,600 vehicles per day, which is much less than many other roads in Canton. Most of Cherry Hill Village has traffic volumes much less than 5,000 vehicles per day. That's an average day. So basically, the volumes are adjusted by month and day of the week to account for the variations in traffic. This tool also shows you how many roads have traffic between 5,001 and 10,000 average vehicles. That would be like Morton Taylor between Ford and Joy, Sheldon Road. Again, I can sit down and go over this with you. There's also 10,000 to 20,000. Cherry Hill from Beck to 275, Canton Center from Joy to Warren, Warren from Beck to Canton Center, Getty's Road from Beck to Canton Center. Jumping to the most traffic, these roads in Canton see between 20,000 and 50,000 average vehicles per day, 4 times as much as Ridge Road. Canton Center Road from Michigan to just north of Warren Road, Ford Road from Beck to Lotz, Haggerty from Ford to Palmer, Michigan Avenue from Beck to Hannon, Warren from Canton Center to Sheldon. These high road volume roads also affect many neighborhood tributaries along this path that need this work. So based on my engineering assessment just from that, many of these roads also contain park traffic, and these roads are crumbling. A lot of these roads that contain park traffic are crumbling. Per Director Fox's graphs last week, Ridge Road has a low number of accidents per many other roads in Canton. Using the same tool, you can also look at accidents. Accidents in Canton indicate that most occurrences and injuries occur along Ford Road. That's been in the newspapers. You all know that. East of Canton Center Road, and then also Michigan Avenue from Beck to 275. North-south crash locations in Canton are mostly on Canton Center, Sheldon, and Lilly Roads. So the north-south roads, and that you know that we have the kids going to school. As an engineer, again, this tells me the impact to Ridge Road is much less than impact to many, many other roads in Canton. Lotz Road, again, was paved last year. Canton has 18 unpaved roads that receive the same calcium chloride treatment. So what I did is I got in my car this past weekend and I drove all of those dirt roads. The dirt roads in the middle part of Canton, they have more houses on those roads. They're closer to the roads. They're smaller houses. It's not as big neighborhoods, so you have houses that are probably about 20 feet from the road. The dirt on, so those houses experience more of the calcium chloride treatment. There's more residents there, more dense. So basically, I cannot prioritize Ridge Road based on the calcium chloride treatment exposure because we have residents that live closer to these treatments on other unpaved roads in Canton. Last week, we met with the Wayne County Roads Commission. The Wayne County Roads Commission came out for a candidates forum. For basically a community forum. They stated it was up to the township to set priorities of the roads, and that's what this task force is going to do for us. We had been told that the previous board, and we've heard about some of the letters, that they would get to work, they would work on Ridge Road paving, and the cost at that time, I think last year was $600,000. It's now doubled to $1.2 million of Canton taxpayer money. Yet when we were handed the budget in November, when we came in, this project wasn't budgeted. So I don't understand. If it was important, why wasn't it budgeted? If it was budgeted, this would be easy. That's the struggle here. It was not budgeted. Wayne County informed us they already have PACER studies or evaluations of most of Canton's major roads. So this task force will be great. They'll be able to, they won't be starting from scratch. HB 4415 is in the legislature right now. This will give townships the ability to set speed limits and place stop signs. We have to put pressure on the State House to do this. The latest highway studies demonstrate, and I look at these studies, this is my current job, the majority of accidents occur due to speeding. We have a speeding problem in Canton. We have a speeding problem in Michigan, but in Canton, we really have a speeding problem. heavy trucks really need to slow down, and we really need to get to ticketing. Maybe we'll make enough revenue to pay for roads, I don't know, if we slow enough people down, but we really need to lower the speed limits. So spending $1.2 million of Canton taxpayer money towards a partially paved road, not even a fully paved road, a partially paved road, and even as one of the residents pointed out, then it's going to take us to another dirt road. Can the traffic be handled there? So basically, the roads task, I think they're going to be assembled to determine more of this, and I did this quick study based on my experience because we didn't have time to do that because we're talking about it now. But the budgeting will be prioritized. Grants and partnerships need to be formed to accomplish this task, and again, in the meantime, we work on House Bill 4415, and we know that we keep working with the Wayne County to tell them the prioritization of the projects once we do this, but I really can't see that spending $1.2 million for a partially paved road is a priority right now. Thank you.
Michael, would you like to add comment, or?
Sure. Well, primarily I'll talk because I am the individual who made the motion to bring this forward. And I wrote out my comments just to help keep it organized. And also it'll help me be pithy because this has been this is the second meeting on this issue. So just, I want to thank the entire board for working to establish a roads task force, which was requested at the last board meeting by a majority of the board members. It seemed like a constant thread. I know I said it, wanted to see it. Part of the reason why I voted no at the last meeting was because we did not have a prioritized list. I believe this task force gets us closer. Additionally, I want to thank Finance Director Trumbull, Finance and Budget Director Trumbull, for laying out our funding options in response to the concerns of a majority of the board at the last meeting. My concerns were primarily that we did not have a strategy to meet the needs of our community when it comes to the deplorable road conditions, and that we had no solution for the funding. Today, as far as I'm concerned, those questions have been answered or are in process of being answered. I feel comfortable moving forward and accepting the $1.5 million from the county that is earmarked for this project. I'm elated to see the cost of bonding this project, if you look at the financial document, will come in at a reasonable annual amount of between $120,000 and $160,000. Fortunately, we have a capital improvement bond for Fellows Creek Golf Course, which is maturing next year. This means that the $165,000 we have been paying annually to retire that debt to do the work on a golf course will be free to apply towards this expenditure in the same year. As far as I'm concerned, if $1.36 million can be issued for recreation, I feel like less than that can be issued for a road that has no charge for people to use. I feel comfortable spending the amount of money to bond this out. I feel like we have the ability to pay for it, and I'm glad that it seems like we're moving in the same direction as the county with the establishment of this roads task force. So my concerns have been answered.
Diane?
Excuse me. I want to thank everybody for coming out to another meeting. I know this has been very emotional. People have worked very hard for the last 4 years. I get it. But I just want to reiterate, these are Wayne County roads. Appreciate Warren Evans and the commissioner for coming out and helping and everything. But we have to remember, these are Wayne County roads. So they're asking us to give them $1.2 million of our money to do a partial pavement. And I just can't swallow that. I'm sorry. I just feel like it's a new road that they're going to be paving partially. The gap between the pavement and the gravel and then the pavement again, the 900 feet, is very dangerous. And trying to find $120,000 to $160,000 out of our general budget every year to pay for this, for a partially paved road, I think it's wrong. I know having this task force is going to put us in the right direction, because we are going to need to make sure that we have our priorities straight, and we're going to have to plan how we want to repair the roads, the Wayne County roads that we have in Canton. Because this is a great community, and we have great people who live here, and people have moved here because it's such a wonderful community, but we need to make sure that we have a plan for our roads. And I want to thank Wendy and Tim for all of their hard work that they have done, so thank you.
Very good, Diane. Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And echo the thanks to everyone. Everybody's put in a lot of work on this, everyone in this room tonight, and I appreciate everyone's passion. Like I said last time when I started, I still want to pave Ridge Road. I started asking Supervisor LaJoy about that 4 years ago, and it is a county road, though. And like some of our other county roads, if the county was paying the full cost to pave this road, of course, I'd approve this in a second. I still want a solution that paves Ridge Road. Canton Township receives no tax money for this road. The millage money and other taxes for roads go to the state and the county. They hold that money. When the county did the subdivision roads match program 2 years ago, of which Sunflower, for those of you who are from here, was a part of that, the township did not offer any matching funds to help out because we claimed we had no tax money for roads. That hasn't changed. This is not a simple approval of a $1.5 million gift from the county. I appreciate the work that the county has done on this. I would like to see this road paved, but accepting that gift requires us to pay $1.25 million of taxpayer money that is earmarked for something else. And even if we do that, it doesn't complete the job. If the county won't complete the job, it will fall on us as a community to pay another $600,000 to do that. So basically, we're being asked to use money from non-road projects to pay for an incomplete road project. That frustrates me. The fact that we are now discussing which capital improvement bonds are about to expire and replace their cost with road bonds assumes that we will never need another capital improvement bond again. I can't imagine that is true. And the difference is the bonds that are expiring, like for the golf course, are bonds for assets that we own as a township. I'm frustrated that we've been asked to vote on this before an official board discussion this year on our plan for roads. It would have been great if this came up next year and we had already done that work. In my last term, and again at the start of this term, I brought up the idea of raising money, most likely through a millage, for the township to use to match and encourage the county and the state to fix and pave our roads, specifically to accomplish things like paving Ridge Road. I still want to have that discussion. We needed to have it before we were asked to make this decision. I've been a proponent of paving this road for 5 years, and as I said last meeting, my desire to do so is primarily so we can offload traffic for Ford Road. I don't know if that makes Ridge Road people happy or not, but that's for the community's sake why I want to have it paved. Last week, I stood out on Ford Road. I live by the Fellows Creek sub on Ford Road between Ridge and Beck, and the rush hour traffic at the Beck and Ford light backed up past the Ridge Road intersection. So I'm adamant that we need to offload some of that traffic, northbound traffic, to a paved Ridge Road. However, as a steward of Canton Township, my statement right now is that we need a prioritization plan and a funding plan before we start spending unfunded millions.
Stephen, Summer, would you like to add?
Sure. I want to thank Commissioner Barone and Supervisor Williams for your hard work on this issue. And I, again, want to thank all of the residents for coming out. I think it's important that we hear from you no matter where we fall on the issue. 2 weeks ago when I sat here, I said that I believed in in paving Ridge Road. But with the information that I had at the time, I didn't feel like I could move forward with an appropriate decision. So after the vote 2 weeks ago, I asked myself what I needed to move forward. And two of the things that I needed to feel comfortable with this vote is to make sure that we were addressing our other infrastructure needs and not just checking a box and say, okay, we're paving Ridge, so we're done with our road funding or with our road projects. So I think establishing the task force helps with that, and I'm looking forward to working with our community residents and the directors and Commissioner Barone on coming up with a solution for that. And the other thing was I needed to know how we were going to fund this project. And so thank you to Director Trumbull for getting us to the information. I think giving us options provides us some flexibility moving forward. And so I am prepared to move forward on this issue today.
Very much. I think that concludes comments. We have a motion in front of us. It has been supported. There is a second motion to be addressed based on the outcome of this motion, which was the motion to reconsider. So those in favor as the motion as read and supported, please state aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay, nay, okay.
Three.
Thank you. And then if, okay, that allows us now to consider the next item, which could you please read that motion?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the February 28, 2017 letter of intent from the Wayne County Executive's Office for the paving and drainage improvements along Ridge Road from Hanford Road to Warren Road.
Second.
Got a motion and support. Those in favor of the motion?
Is there discussion?
Supervisor, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay,
on that.
very good. Okay, there's additional board comment?
Yeah.
Okay,
Is
please.
that okay?
Go, this would be the time. Please
Thank
do.
you. So now that this action has been taken, I'm going to take a different approach going forward. I've stated my position on spending this money without a funding or priority plan. However, since it appears to me that it's going to be going forward, I want to make a few requests if I'm going to support this project. Only doing 3/4 of the job makes us look foolish. Residents will think we are crazy when they see the final project. Let's approve and complete the whole road. Without a complete fix, the goal of offloading Ford Road traffic will not be accomplished. Why is spending $1.2 million from our general fund in various ways and on an incomplete solution okay, but spending $1.85 million to give us a full fix to traffic is not? At this point, I urge the board to discuss amending this action to add the $600,000 needed to finish the project all at once. Either approve the additional amount tonight or at one of our next few board meetings. Only providing a 75% solution is a 25% fix to these issues. Also, to the Ridge Road residents, if your request is approved, please take the positive energy you've gathered in this process and help us ensure that we have a solution to fix the roads across our entire community. I think one of you mentioned that tonight. Now that you will have what you're looking for, let's channel our efforts in helping us to get a total solution to our roads. While I know you'll be pleased tonight, I'm hoping you won't enjoy your achievement and then just disappear. We need your help. There are other citizens like you that are suffering from all aspects of our community's failing road system. Will you help spread the word in our community about how we need to pay for the action we're taking tonight and the hundreds of others we still need to take? Will you champion any potential necessary millage increases that will be required to pay off these actions that will create new debt in our community? Please don't stop now that you have momentum of organization and can be helpful to the entire community. To the county, Mr. Barone and others, and our full-time officials and administrators, I ask that you review our procedures for approving new subdivisions and ensure that where roads are unpaved, the county requires that developers pave the dirt roads adjacent to their new subdivisions. If we had been doing that for years, the cost to the county and township today would be much lower. I'm seriously considering not voting in favor of any future subdivision plans that don't include that from the county if there is a requirement for paving a road adjacent to a new subdivision. Please don't let it get to that point. And to my fellow board members, we can't keep taking unfunded and unbudgeted actions without a plan to finance them. We have it in our power and authority to raise the monies required to start these projects. I urge us to pass a millage increase dedicated to roads this year. A 1 mil increase could raise $3 to $4 million for roads and is less than $8 a month on a $200,000 house. Not insignificant, but without it, or something like it, we can never get on top of this problem. As far as I'm concerned, the current state of our roads in terms of traffic and disrepair issues is an emergency to the people of our community, and we should treat it as such. We as a team need to be more proactive and time-sensitive to the road infrastructure issues we have today. In the hope that some of these requests that I'm making tonight can be fulfilled, I will support the measure to pave Ridge Road. Thank you.
Any additional board comments? Yes, Michael?
I'll be brief because this has been long and I've already talked about the motion to reconsider. But, you know, and I appreciate Trustee Snyderman's comments 100%. I don't think we should stop until we get Phase 3 taken care of. I really don't. And we've got Commissioner Barone in the audience. I know you're willing to push on this as well. From what I understand, we're sending a letter of intent to enter into an agreement with Wayne County. I have talked to the county. I begged and pleaded to get enough money to finish this project because I agree. Having an unpaved portion does look rather foolish. Also, I do think, it's better for everybody. I don't like leaving unpaved drains. It was very clear that we were not going to get that, and that would not be a part of the agreement we have with Wayne County. That doesn't mean it's not a priority. It doesn't mean it's not a priority from the county in future budgets as well. So please work hard to bring that money back. I would prefer the county pay for it as opposed to us. However, I am looking forward to the work that this roads task force does. I'm going to take a little bit different of an approach than Trustee Snyderman in the sense that I want to start with a blank slate and see what the task force sees out there. What is the total up-to-date cost if we're looking for a true solution for Ford Road and the safety concerns on it? What would it take, or what is a feasible solution to help out these neighborhoods with regards to their infrastructure? And then how can we meet, or what is the true cost on these county roads that are not sufficient to meet our standards? Once I know what the problem is, I would love to see a detailed way to get to a solution. I want to know what we're giving people before we ask what we want, what we need from people. And so perhaps the solution is, perhaps there is a solution, perhaps there is a revenue solution. I just want to know what the problem is before we lead with the solution. So I'm not at a place right now where I would, necessarily support, raising the millage without the work of this committee to study what the actual problem is. And in that process, I think this board, because there was a couple of things thrown out at the last meeting. One was a tax increase. One was a $1 million study. I think we will not do a $1 million study. I think the board was clear on that. And really, throw away all of the conceptions that we bring to this, study the problem, work with the county, and find a common sense solution to make all of our lives better at a reasonable cost. I think that's what the goal of this should be. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
Additional comments, please, Anne Marie.
John, do you have any? Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, thanks.
You get to be last.
Yes. I just want to say that many of the older subdivisions are also considered Wayne County roads, and homeowners associations moved in we have to take care of our own snow and salt and things like that. Even though they're considered Wayne County, the rule is eventually Wayne County will plow your roads. That's not the case. So those of us who did win the lottery of the Wayne County funds, each household had to put in money to supplement that. So, that has to be out there too. So while we're looking at $1.2 million of all of taxpayers paying for a partially funded road, those of us who lived in the older subdivisions, we had to pay for the fixes to our roads just last year. So, there's a lot of Canton residents that are upset about that also, and that's important to consider.
I guess I am going to do a closing. Normally, I don't like to talk at this point in the program. I'd rather just move into the vote. But what I want to state is a couple things very, very briefly. The gap is a heartburn, and to think or not assume that I'm not busting my tail behind the scenes to figure out a solution on that fast is a little naive. But I would like to state, anybody in this room, you want to ask me detailed questions, what I'm thinking, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to get done, call me. Come have coffee with me. I talk to anybody. And I'll tell you full-blown, I'm a very transparent guy. I'm not going to go into the detail here tonight because it's not appropriate. Commissioner Brown and I probably talk 3-4 times a week. We're grinding on each other trying to figure out solutions. So we're not resting. It's that simple. You got a question you want to ask me specifically, give me a shout. I'll talk you through it. What I'd like to do now is we've had conversation. We've been about an hour and a half into this program. I'd like to call for a vote. Have we had a motion, a second, of the second motion? Okay. Those in favor of the motion as stated, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
2? 1, 2, thank you. Appreciate that, guys. Public, thank you all for coming out tonight. What I'm going to suggest, because we're an hour and a half into this meeting and we probably got another 45, 50 minutes to go, is maybe take a little 5-minute break, 10-minute break. That'll give you guys a chance to clear out, and then we'll move through the rest of the agenda, which I promise you is going to be boring compared to this stuff.
I know how it is.
Yeah. Folks, if we're ready to get started again, we're going to move back up on the calendar out to, I believe, G1, and then the board, let's be mindful that we now have a G11 that we need to pick up at the end, but right now, moving on to old item G1, still G1, right? Consider approval of special land use request for an auto service establishment.
All right, Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution. Special land use for Valvoline quick oil change. Whereas the project sponsor, Mr. Zayed El-Baba, has requested special use approval for an auto service establishment to be located on Michigan Avenue between Canton Center and Beck Roads on the parcel identified, and whereas the Planning Commission found the proposed special use to be consistent with the development objectives of the township and recommended approval based upon the findings listed in the analysis, and whereas the board has reviewed the proposed special use and determines the proposal to be consistent with the zoning ordinance regulations and development objectives of the township, subject to any conditions described in the analysis and recommendations form attached hereto and made a part hereof. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the request of the project sponsor to conduct the special use for the proposed Valvoline quick oil change, subject to compliance with any conditions contained herein and all other regulations of the township.
Second.
Good. In terms of a summary, the project sponsor proposes to locate a quick oil change facility on the north side of Michigan Avenue, east of the Crossroads Village Shopping Center. The parcel is approximately 1 acre. Auto service establishments may be permitted as special land uses in C3 zoning districts. Responses to special land use criteria have been included with this analysis. A market analysis has also been provided and is attached for your review. The conceptual site plan has also been included. A cross connection will be made to the plaza to the east in addition to Michigan Avenue entrance. The applicant was encouraged to design the building with an appearance similar to the building next door. The colored version of the architectural elevations is also attached. Details will be finalized, and I believe we do have in the audience Mr. Zayed El-Baba. If there are any questions regarding the project, are there any board questions? Comments, questions?
We had just gone over this in the Planning Commission. Just want to let everyone know, it's interesting, I don't know if you got to read it, they did a study on, they did phone calls to people to find out, how people felt about this. And while they did get a lot of hangups, they did get some good data, and that is a hard piece of land to do anything with.
Sorry, did you say the Planning Commission called or the?
No.
Oh, they did.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Anne Marie did for the last 6 weeks.
Yes.
Wouldn't surprise us.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. That being said, those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Gentlemen, have a good evening. Thank you for being patient. Very good. Moving on, item G2. Consider approval of recycling infrastructure grant agreement with the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, MDEQ.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the Recycling Infrastructure Grant Agreement with the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, MDEQ, and further authorize the Township Supervisor to sign the agreement on behalf of the Township.
Support.
In March of 2017, Canton Township applied to the state MDEQ for a grant to help offset roughly $1.5 million expense to purchase recycling carts for the implementation of our automated recycling collection services program. We were awarded the grant in May for a maximum amount permitted of $50,000. The MDEQ has prepared the grant agreement for our approval by the Board of Trustees, and staff is recommending the approval. Also, I think it's important to note that Trustee Anne Marie Hudek had found this grant opportunity for us through, what was the
MTA publication.
Okay, through the MTA, Michigan Townships Association, which in turn staff followed up on, applied for, and we were successful. Are there any board questions or?
Great job.
None. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item G3. Consider approval of request to reduce certain fees for special land use and site plan review of the proposed Eagle Scout project at Life Church. And I do not see our Eagle Scout in the audience. Do not see, okay. Yeah, it's a little late for him.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the request by David Garvey to reduce the fees for special land use and site plan review expenses for the proposed Eagle Scout project at Life Church to $500.
Support.
The past several months, staff has been dealing with a request from a local Eagle Scout, Mr. David Garvey, regarding the construction of a shelter for outdoor events, the Life Church facility on the corner of Haggerty at Warren. The requested structure is not shown on the approved site plans. It was never part of any approved or special land use by the church. As such, staff must process the request in a similar manner to other requests. Given the simple nature of the structure was mostly a developed site, the review should be minimal. However, normal public notices and advertisements are still required. Given this, the staff is recommending the board reduce application review fees from $1,750 that's normally charged for such requests to $500, which will cover our outside advertising costs. Are there any board questions or comments? Any board questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item G4. Consider discussion on the proposal to preserve 27 acres of existing green space property as a future parkland along Morton Taylor Avenue, north of Michigan Avenue at the trailhead.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to consider discussion on a proposal by Marketplace of America 3 to preserve 27 acres of property as future parkland along Morton Taylor Road, north of Michigan Avenue.
Second.
In terms of summary, over the past decade, the Marketplace of America 3 property owners have entertained a variety of development proposals for property it owns generally located along the north side of Michigan Avenue and either side of Morton Taylor Road. Most recently, the developer has been in discussions with the township during preliminary planning phases of the latest project and options to preserve a portion of the site at our trailhead to the north of the Lower Rouge River, and those discussions have evolved. While it is somewhat unconventional to solicit township board input on a development prior to consideration by Planning Commission and/or board, given the recent joint study session with Planning Commission and Township Board on the comprehensive plan update, staff felt it might be helpful or beneficial to have a discussion with the board in advance of our next meeting with the developer. The trailhead could potentially create a passive park area as a community benefit. So, Tim, can you kind of lead us in how we've got to this point?
Yeah, so there's certainly quite a bit of history. We didn't delve into all those details in the report that's before the board, but over the years, the board might be familiar that you might have heard about developments such as a large Myers shopping center would have been the second one in Canton to be placed on this site. When Myers fell through, the next up, I believe, was a Menards building center for this site. That then didn't move forward. So two, what I'd call very intense commercial developments that were potentially going here on the easterly portion of the property that Michigan Marketplace 3 currently owns. The westerly portion, which is generally these lots here that front Michigan Avenue, would then have a second kind of large strip center similar to what you see at Beck Road and Michigan Avenue today that would have been additional pretty intense commercial uses along there. And then there was never really a lot of discussion about the other property that this group of developers, a number of which who are here tonight, should the board have any questions, are or have under their control, and that's the purple piece at the north end. So south of Lancelot and west of Wood Creek here to the east across the ITC corridor. So there's a large 27-acre parcel here that's currently zoned R2. It means that they could put about 52, 54 roughly homes in this particular area. It's an existing dense forest. Morton Taylor Road, which is the road along here, which has the pedestrian footbridge for access to our Lower Rouge Trail, is largely unimproved. It's kind of just a pathway right now. So a road would be constructed along here in order to service this residential development long-term. The road would likely have to be carried all the way through to Michigan Avenue, kind of blowing out the existing trail system that exists, the existing footbridge that was built by the township a number of years back. So it would be kind of, from staff's perspective anyways, pretty disruptive to the existing trail system. And then, you know, the real question being posed tonight, I think for discussion only, is, you know, what are your feelings about possibly working with the developer to preserve, instead of see this developed as part of the comprehensive development on these properties that they hold, to preserve it potentially as future parkland. The benefits being, A, it's immediately north of the existing Lower Rouge Parkway, which is this big green area, and you can kind of see the trailway in gray along this line. So the existing trail kind of follows the river. And then we have another trail that goes up the ITC corridor right here, which you can kind of see. Then it jogs a little bit and goes up towards Palmer Road. So the property is flanked by the parkland and by our existing trail system. So it certainly could provide a real opportunity for development as future parkland, you know, trails or passive park use area. However, the township saw fit to do that, and the developers have expressed some interest in possibly doing that as part of this project. So that's kind of part one of it. The second part is the relationship to other property that we've been in discussion with the developers on, and that is some property that the township owns, generally denoted by this purple area outlined in red on the south side of Michigan Avenue in the former Dye Brothers subdivision. It's all vacant, kind of forested, woodland and wetland. And, you know, there could be an opportunity as part of a more comprehensive development, including the north side, that property is either exchanged or sold in some fashion to facilitate some kind of residential development on this side. So that question has kind of been posed a couple times through a few emails, through our discussion at the joint Planning Commission and Township Board meeting about future land use in this area. And, you know, staff have received some feedback from the board, kind of some mixed feedback about, you know, the desire to have residential along Michigan Avenue, either on the north or the south side, and then the proximity to the landfill, which is far over here. It was pretty clear from our prior discussions that I think there was no interest by the board in seeing residential on the parcel immediately north of the landfill beside Lilly, which Director Meyer had, I think, also noted that that might be a good potential location for a possible future fire station if and when that's ever needed. But, you know, there's, the township owns a considerable amount of this old property in the Dye Brothers development, and there's an opportunity now with this particular project to maybe, you know, pull it all together. What we don't know today is what form of development will the applicant make to the township. There's a lot of different things that could be considered because you've got potential commercial, potential industrial, potential residential, all integrated on both the north side and on the south side of Michigan Avenue because of the mixed-use designation in the future land use plan, and then a few conflicting policies in the existing future land use plan about residential. So the idea tonight was really to kind of take the pulse of the board. Again, as I wrote up in the item, it's pretty unconventional for us to do this, but with the developer's blessing, we wanted to have this discussion with the board before we move any further forward with the developer, and then ultimately they'll make their choice to make an application to the township, whether it's through a conventional development using zoning and just going through the normal process to develop parcels, either in big blocks, in small blocks, whether it's through some form of a planned development district agreement, which provides a lot of flexibility in the development and provides a longer time frame for the approvals to move forward, or whether it's possibly a conditional rezoning request. So there's a lot of different tools that we've got in the toolbox that the developer can use in making their application. They haven't really kind of said one way or the other firmly kind of what they want to do, but they're trying to gauge a little kind of pulse of where the board's at, so that one, they can start figuring out what they want to do on the property, then start lining up some clients, some people, some potential users, working on the product, working on the design, and then kind of getting through the development stages. So tremendous number of steps required, on their part to figure that all out. So really, we're kind of starting tonight with just some preliminary discussion, and if the board has any comments they want to offer publicly, that would help us in our negotiations with the developer. And obviously, the developer's here if they want to make any comments with respect to the development, or if you have any questions for them, that's certainly fair game tonight. So that's really it, kind of in a nutshell. I think there's a real opportunity here to achieve some things, in particular the preservation of that property to the north. I think, that's a key piece in terms of value to the township. If not, certainly the developer would have rights vested under the existing zoning and the future land use to proceed with developing this property as R2. And I'm just going to be very frank with the board. I think the neighbors around this area would not be very happy to see this particular woodlot developed, and there's not really very much the township has in its power to limit the development of the residential portion to the north. So a lot of info, but that's really kind of what's on the table. So.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Michael.
Next question, this red portion, so this is in the Dye Brothers subdivision, this area that's boxed in red. This is the part that we would be talking about. Can you explain the thought process?
Yeah, so there's two parts. There's this red box on the south side of Michigan Avenue, which there's been some interest expressed by the developer of, possibly doing some residential down here, some higher density residential, probably in the form of apartments. And then there's the other darker purple box up here, which is the parkland. This is 27 acres, and I'm not sure that we've even got an acreage on this. It's probably a little bit more, but understand certainly some of that property is encumbered with some woodlands and wetlands that are likely not easily developable.
Yeah, but from what I understand, we have got most of the parcels in the Dye Brothers subdivision. So how did we come to this portion of the Canton, of our property?
Yeah, so some of this we've acquired this through, or the majority of this property we've acquired through tax foreclosure from Wayne County. We would still need to go through kind of a more detailed assessment on a parcel-by-parcel basis if there was interest moving forward to determine what funds were used for the purchase of this, whether it was general fund or CDBG or any other grant funds. But again, we're kind of It's probably too early to go into that level of detail at this point until we had a sense of what the board was interested.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is, why did we choose this part of the property we own as opposed to another part of the
Okay.
property that we own? I
Yeah, better
apologize
put, thank you.
for being dense.
Yeah, so we chose this one because it has access to Sheldon Road to the west, and it has significant access along Washburn Road here to the north. This, for the purposes of reference, is the L. George's site, right at the corner of Michigan Avenue and Washburn. So L. George's sits right up here. So Washburn is a pretty major access road. There's, some utilities in the area, generally pretty good access. And then the second issue is that it's, sorry, let me get my mouse going here. It's furthest from the landfill, furthest from the wetlands, and we feel that, some of this property that we also have assembled through foreclosure from the county could potentially be preserved as woodland in long term, if that was kind of one of the desires of the board.
Well, so I've run out of questions. That was really my only main question. Other than that, I will let you know, my gut tells me I like this. I like the idea of preserving that area, that parcelage over by both trails, the ITC trail and the Lower Rouge Trail. I think that preserving that forest would be phenomenal, and in the interest of not only that subdivision but the township as a whole. One of the things that I'm kind of a project of mine, or something that's really kind of near and dear to my heart, is that we do that, and I think that that's a key piece of property. So I like this idea. I will communicate that.
Anne Marie, please.
Thank you. So how far away is this from the landfill then? Do you know?
Which parcel, Anne Marie?
One on the lower, that you're proposing to develop?
Yeah, so giving you a context, I think, and I don't have a measurement tool handy here, but the corridor here is probably 250 feet at least by reference. If you think that Michigan Avenue is 210, this might even be 300 feet, just scaling it visually. So you're talking, from the landfill, you've got 3, 6, 9, 12, probably 1,500 feet to roughly where Corinne is here. That's the approximate distance, so.
Okay, my concern is still that before we build is that we take measurements, soil measurements, away from the, I know that we have cells, but cells are known to leak underneath the landfills historically, so if we could take measurements at certain.
Yeah, so there's, as I'm sure you're aware, there's a detailed groundwater monitoring system all the way around the landfill. That's a state requirement, has been for many years because of concerns about leaking landfills from primarily 1970 and before. But those monitoring wells are tested regularly. There's no reports based on the historical measurements that have been taken here by the county, by the state, that are done. I believe they sample monthly from all those wells of any off-site migration of any contaminants. So that's good news. That means the liner's holding up very well. This landfill was well designed when it was constructed. It certainly doesn't it doesn't eliminate the possibility in the future of that happening. But if it does, typically a mitigation plan is put in place and it's fixed. And that's the responsibility of what they call the principal responsible parties, which is the operator of the landfill in this case.
And we're still talking about the landfill being in operation for, 18 more years after that, after residents are there. So you're still talking about airborne contaminants, correct?
20 years, roughly 18 to 20 years left for the operation of the landfill. And they're currently filling in this southwest quadrant with a prevailing wind that is mostly easterly.
Well, even like the resident earlier here talked about noise too. I mean, that's, so we have to look at the noise ordinances, noises along the border of the landfill, and also, do we have a way to measure the air contaminants at all?
We do not measure the air. Again, the county and the state DEQ measure the air in accordance with the state and federal requirements for monitoring air pollution from landfills. That's all well thought out in federal law. So, you know, I've not been made aware of any air quality concerns, certainly from the landfill either. And in fact, since they've installed the gas recapture, the gas, if you want to call it recycling system at the landfill, they have reduced the airborne emissions from the landfill considerably, because the leachate and gas used to be flamed. Some of it was flamed constantly. Now, most of that gas is being captured and is being purified and then resold back to consumers' energy. And then there's a small amount of flame from the residual. So if you want to talk technical, we've got lots of technical reports about that, but there's a small amount that's still flamed, and that's a requirement. It has to be flamed so that the whole thing doesn't, in essence, kind of explode.
I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I know when I worked at Visteon, which is about 2.3 miles southeast of that, I mean, the smell from these landfills got in our ventilation. You could smell it sitting at your desk. So, I mean, living that close would be a concern, but.
I'd like to address Dr. Colmenars, with all due respect. As I've communicated in writing to him, the issue is closed. We have taken all the measurements at every point. There is non-issue. There is no issue. It's closed.
No, the smell, I'm
Well, no,
concerned
no,
about.
reference to the noise. The issue's closed. So I feel bad that Mr. Colmenars, Dr. Colmenars thinks there's a problem. There is no problem. The issue's closed legally, in writing, and now we're hopefully, he finds a happy resolution. So, please, Stephen. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm off in another tangent here.
No problem. Director Foss, what is, back to the northern part, what is the blue area next to the purple area?
Interesting you would ask about the landfills. So the, the blue areas here are wetlands mitigation that were constructed when the landfills were permitted and approved back in 1989 and 1999. So this is property that the landfill acquired and used as mitigation for the development of their site. So there were some wetlands, probably, I wasn't here at that time, but there was probably some wetlands on that site, so they purchased this property and instead mitigated the land, or the wetlands there.
So they will remain that way?
Yes.
Said community facilities, and I didn't know what that
Yeah.
specifically meant.
Yeah, that's just kind of the zoning classification generally for especially the green parcels.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I like the idea. It kind of completes that area. The other question I had is, do we know the approximate values of the two parcels from a real estate perspective?
No, we haven't certainly got to that step yet.
Okay.
Just kind of baby steps at this point.
Yeah, I'd be interested in pursuing further and seeing those types of things.
Yeah, so just that, I was gonna, what Stephen was saying, I know this is just the early stage process. It looks interesting. So I would like to know, I assume we're discussing this because we possibly might want to do this. And so would the next step then be to get an appraisal and see if the land swap is, you know, equal, or what's the next step? Because, you know.
Yes. So it's kind of like, you know, a bunch of trains on the track at the same time, and one of the trains that the developer has on the track currently is evaluating the property on the south side, doing what you would call their due diligence, looking at the wetlands, looking at what kind of structures used to exist out here, were any of those structures potentially contaminated, you know, what else is out there, what kind of other environmental and physical constraints are there with the development. So they're in the process of doing that, and while we don't have a timetable to get back together again, I expect that after tonight's board meeting that the supervisor will likely receive a phone call from one or more of the guys sitting in the back row requesting a meeting to kind of get together again. But, so really, the next step is to talk further, and then, you know, at some point, they'll complete their due diligence. We'll talk, you know, likewise, we can do some valuations on these properties. They may have already done some of that on their own as part of their due diligence, and then we'll get together again with them in the near future, I expect.
We don't get very many opportunities to preserve green space, and it is something that I care very deeply about. So I think if we have the opportunity to preserve 27 acres of green space, we should move in that direction.
Okay, good. Mr. Anthony, would you like to add anything? Okay. Gentlemen, you've been very patient. You've sat through a very long meeting tonight. Is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation or the discussion? I kind of am getting a read that there's interest in taking the next step and see, you know, some of the logistics, how it might work. I think that kind of is the consensus I'm building here. Meeting. All right. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. This item really doesn't require a vote, but we did make a motion, and we did have the discussion. Do you want to close it with the vote to make it official in the record?
Consider discussion.
Well, I consider it discussion as well, but I'm deferring to Clerk Segrist to, what do you want to do next? Do you want to vote on this because we motioned it and supported it, or?
Technically, we discussed the motion to consider discussion.
Right.
You're making this up.
I'm not.
No, we just did that.
Making it up.
So.
Let's have the vote and close it out.
We should have a vote.
All right. Those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to item G5. And gentlemen, yeah, thank you for being so patient tonight. Do appreciate it. Item G5. Consider approval of bid for sheet metal gutters and downspouts to the Katie Boyer Barn.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to award the bid for the sheet metal gutters and downspouts at the Katie Boyer Barn to Butcher and Butcher Construction Company at 3885 Industrial Drive in Rochester Hills, Michigan, 48309, in the amount of $10,950 to be paid from the account number listed, a capital outlay buildings and improvements fund.
Support.
Thank you. We did receive bids. We reached out to the lowest bidder, which is Butcher and Butcher, to add these gutters and downspouts to preserve the Katie Boyer Barn. Are there any questions? This is located at Preservation Park, correct? The Katie Boyer Barn.
Yes,
Anything
sir.
to add, Director?
Yes, sir. No, nothing to add.
Any questions?
Where the rally is tonight.
That we missed, but in the future, we're not going to have that on Tuesday night
It
board
will
meeting
not
nights.
be on a board meeting night next year.
I appreciate it. I
Follow
wanted to
that.
go for years. Any additional board question, comment? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G6, consider approval of actuarial valuation of the Charter Township of Canton Retiree Health Care Plan.
Mr. Supervisor, I hereby move to approve the proposal from CBIZ, or CBIZ, Retirement Plan Services to provide an actuarial valuation of the retiree health care benefits for a not-to-exceed fee of $17,500, and to authorize the finance director to sign the acceptance of letter of engagement.
Support.
Comply with the reporting requirements of Government Accounting Standards Boards, or GASB, statements number 45 and 43. All municipals are required to have prepared an actuarial valuation of the retiree health care benefits. We are required to update the actuarial valuation every 2 years. With the last one received dated December 31st, 2014, this report will provide us with required information that is necessary to be disclosed in the 2017 and 2018 financial audits. We are recommending that the board approved the Director of Finance and Budget to enter into the contract with CBIZ for the December 31st, 2016 actuarial valuation for retiree health care benefits, and I would only add that those actuarials will include our current aggressive stance for paying down through budgets, and also allow us to have more detailed information to do our budgeting in the coming years. Are there any board questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion presented, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G7. Approval of grant application for the purchase of optical scan voting equipment by the Secretary of State for the Charter Township of Canton.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the resolution as follows. Whereas the Charter Township of Canton Board wishes to apply to the Secretary of State for a grant to purchase a new voting system which includes precinct tabulators, accessible voting devices for use by individuals with disabilities, and related election management systems software, and whereas partial funding for the new voting system will be provided by the state and will include a combination of federal Help America Vote Act and state appropriated funds, and whereas the Charter Township of Canton plans to begin implementation of the new voting system in 2017. Now therefore be it resolved that the Charter Township of Canton clerk is authorized to submit this grant application on behalf of the Charter Township of Canton, Wayne County, on the 25th day of July 2017.
The only thing I'd like to add is this, there's public comment?
We need support first and
Yeah,
foremost.
support.
I'll support it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please, do.
I didn't mention this earlier because I thought we had a chance to talk about each one of these as it came up, so I apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
That's why I stuck around before going home and crying over previous discussions, but also I just don't do roads. I also volunteer for voting. The precinct I'm with is at the Salem High School. The presidential election was terrible last year. The equipment was terrible. The tabulator didn't do its job. The cloning of the laptops to try to handle the additional traffic did not work properly. So I stuck around. I didn't realize we were going to talk about this. I stuck around because I have a valued interest in this since I worked the poll. Okay, hopefully this number 8 and number 9, if I can talk about both, hopefully number 7, number 8, hopefully this Dominion voting system and this grant provides the township with better equipment than we have today. Because what we have today doesn't work. You have frustrated volunteers. You have very frustrated people coming to the polls and waiting in long lines and not getting their vote counted. And I mean, it was just terrible. And I don't know if Salem High School is any different than the other precincts, but it was terrible. So that's my only comment, is that I hope this is better, because what we have don't work.
Clerk Segrist put a lot of effort into this, as well as the next item. This is going to allow us to acquire 47 tabulators and ballot boxes and 24 ADA accessible voting devices. Is there anything additional you'd like to add, Clerk Segrist?
Yeah, I just, given the public comment especially, definitely understand your concern. And it's not just at the precinct that votes at Salem. I haven't memorized all of them yet because I've only been on the job for 6. Yeah, Precinct 8. I did know that. I was going to say Precinct 8, Pat. You stole my thunder. But it is, yeah, that issue would be township-wide, and it's not just in Canton Township, Wayne County, the entire state of Michigan working on tabulators that are pretty old. In fact, 17 states working on voting equipment that's over a decade old. So it does get worse than what you've had to deal with. These new tabulators, when they rolled them out, all 43 of the municipal clerks and their deputies were there. We were able to use them. The glee in the room at the ease of use with the actual tabulators that will be at the polling location was what was pervasive. Everyone was pretty happy with it. The printing will allow for 4 columns, which means you will not see a 2-page ballot ever again in the future, which was actually the cause of a series of jams. This is part of the reason those jams caused misreads on the tapes, which did not allow some of the precincts to be recounted when they tried to do the recount this year. There was a technical problem. The tabulators would read that a ballot was tabulated when it was a jam. Now, no vote was cast, but it would assume there was an extra vote there, and this caused some discrepancies in a lot of other municipalities. We'll never have another 2-page ballot again. So the notion that that kind of common jam will be happening is kind of gone. So that's a positive thing. There's an added security measure in that not only will we have the physical ballot, not only will we have the tape, it'll also take a digital image of every single ballot. So you can actually, if you did ever audit the election, you could take the physical ballot, the image, and then see that the vote was cast, that you have the physical ballot, the image that references that, you still got an anonymous ballot, but you can actually tie out the ballots to the physical ballot that exists. So it's pretty exciting. The equipment, I hope you enjoy, and I'm excited about it, and most of the clerks in Wayne County were excited about it. We had 3 vendors we could choose from. This was the one we liked the best.
Are there any additional board questions or comments of Clerk Segrist?
Excited too. Sounds great.
Wonderful. Seeing no further questions or comments, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G8. Harry, before we get into G8, if you'd like to go ahead and lock up, it's okay to leave. We will exit through public safety, or you're more than welcome to stay for probably another 15 minutes. Okay. Have a good night, sir. Thank you, and we will exit through public safety.
Just, if I may, perhaps not lock up the front door, just to conform with the Open Meetings Act, that we would have the front door open.
Do you think we might have an issue?
We can't lock the front door.
Okay, Harry, can you stay with us 15 minutes? We got chocolate in the back.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, the clerk is technically, you're correct.
All right.
For some random reason, somebody showed up and wanted to address us, and we're here, so we really can't
Do
lock
we,
them out.
we only have 2 more items to be.
Yeah, we're going to go quick. 10 minutes.
Get them done. I got
apologize,
I got
Harry,
4
and I'll
minutes
be quiet.
max.
Okay. All right, thank you. And understood, Clerk Segrist. So
All right.
moving right along, item G8, am I at? Yes. G7 is what we just completed. Okay, this is approval of blanket purchase order to Dominion Voting Systems for purchase of election equipment.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the request for a blanket purchase order to Dominion Voting Systems Incorporated for the purchase of election equipment in the amount of $60,000 from the specified account. So if there's a support, I would appreciate that.
Support, please.
Michigan is requiring all communities to purchase new election equipment. Wayne County has awarded the county contract to Dominion Voting Systems, Inc., although the state will be reimbursing some of these expenses. Canton is responsible for a portion of the cost. The clerk has done an analysis of the needed equipment and is requesting a blanket purchase order to Dominion Voting Systems in the amount not to exceed $60,000 or in the amount of $60,000? In the amount of $60,000. Are there any board questions or comments for Clerk Segrist? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Carries. We've covered, G9 and 10. We're moved to G1A and B. So now we're G11, which is, I've got it here. I'm going to call for motion, which is basically the amendments to the massage. Consider, yeah, no, we're okay. It's in
B5 in the
yeah,
packet.
Consider second reading of the amendment to Canton Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Article 3, entitled Massage, Sections 18-82, through 18-107.
All right, and this is going to be in the form of two motions. Mr. Supervisor, I move to remove from the table and hold a second reading of amendments to Canton Township's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Article 3, entitled Massage, Sections 18-82 through 18-107, amending the definition of patron in Section 18-23G to read, any person who receives a massage under such circumstances that it is reasonably expected that they shall make payment.
Support.
Summary, this would typically be handled through the consent calendar, but because we had to modify the language slightly to clarify who a patron is, that's why we're presenting this to you this evening as a general calendar item. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Carries. Now, second motion, G11.
Supervisor, I move to adopt the second reading of amendments to Canton Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Article 3, entitled Massage, Sections 18-82 through 18-107, amending the definition of patron in Section 18-23G to read, any person who receives a massage under such circumstances that it is reasonably expected that they shall make payment, and publish August 3rd, 2017, with an effective date of September 2nd, 2017.
Word again.
Good. I have nothing to add to in terms of summary. Are there any board questions or comments?
I'll just, to the people at home who are wondering what I just did, there was a typo, and we are fixing that through this amendment.
It's exciting stuff. Well, thank you very much. Those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, motion carries. That being said, I think we can call for a motion to adjourn, is there any staff comments? Any staff comments, any public comments? Seeing none.
Come on, Kate.
Are there any board comments or discussions, items for this, at this time? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
I move the adjourn.
Support it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none. Mr. Hohenberger. Harry, we'll get out of your hair now.
Now it's